This RSM Tax Summit presentation is maximizing your data with PartnerSight. At this time, I'm pleased to turn our call over to our first presenter, Brad Collins. Brad?
Thank you so much. And good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast, and still good morning for those across the rest of you across the country. I really appreciate you being with us here today. And as it notes, maximizing your data with PartnerSight. And I have a fantastic team that I'm going to introduce to you here that's going to take you through that today. And I really appreciate them being here, being a part of this, and for you participating with us. Next slide, please, Dave. All right, as I mentioned, I have a fantastic team. And one thing I've learned as a leader, my name is Brad Collins. I'm a principal here at RSM, and I lead our partnership technology services team. And as I mentioned, one thing I've learned as a leader is to bring on people that are much smarter and much more talented than you, and stay out of their way. So that's what I'm going to do here today after I introduce in a moment. But we have Dave, Lauren, and John, and they're fantastic from the standpoint of their experience, their backgrounds, their capability, working with clients and with the teams, to do something truly great with the technology that we've built and with our clients' data. So they're going to take you on a fascinating journey today that's really going to share with you how we can do things in a more efficient, more effective manner to truly drive value out of everything that we do when it comes to our tax and our data. Next slide, please, Dave. Next, we're going to talk about our agenda, and I'll start out with an overview of PartnerSight. If you joined us last year, you would have had an opportunity to see where we were going with PartnerSight. We had just introduced it for the first time. And so I'll talk to you about where we've been on our journey with PartnerSight. The additional, what you'll see and hear today is the additional opportunities that we've had to build out the platform even further to maximize the opportunities with it. And then we'll get into some practical applications leveraging PartnerSight and technology tools to just really maximize your data and maximize the value that you get from it. And then we'll open it up to questions and to the audience. I see a significant number of you with us today, so I know you always bring great questions. You don't have to limit those until the end. You can ask them as we go. Once I pass it over to the real stars of the show, I'll be monitoring the chat and answering any of the questions that come in, or those tougher ones I might not be able to answer. We'll wait for the true experts, and I'll make sure I prompt them at the right time. But go ahead and ask those anytime. So, what are the objectives for our presentation today? We really want to share with you how to leverage your data in real time. And what you'll see from PartnerSight and what this team brings to the table is in a traditional way, in a traditional time, tax data was always retrospective, right? It was very hard to leverage it to truly capture the value of it because you're always looking at it in a retrospective manner. What we bring with PartnerSight is that ability to capture that data, replicate that data, and truly use that data for decision-making purposes, not just at the fund level, but all the way through to the owner level. We'll talk a bit about that as well. That value creation is what I was referring to, and how we'll leverage that, and how we'll leverage the technology to do that. And really, when you think about leveraging PartnerSight within your operational design, and looking at your organization, how could you leverage a technology like this and plugging it into your day-to-day operations and truly drive value for yourself professionally and for your organization? That's really what we're capturing here today. And so as we go please ask us questions as it relate to any of these learning objectives, so we can make sure that we answer any of those. And of course, for all of those attending, you can find us all on LinkedIn or at our emails. If we can't get to something, please always follow up with us. That's one of the aspects of this profession and this focus that we love the most is helping our clients with the challenges that they see and how we can leverage technology to do that. So at any point, please take advantage of that in reaching out to us directly. Next slide, Dave. Okay. As I mentioned, a year ago, we brought PartnerSight out into the world, right? And the genesis of PartnerSight for myself and for the team that you'll hear from today was, we all have a significant number of years experience in the industry. And over those years, we always took notes, and we always said, in our disparate backgrounds, coming from, you'll hear from Lauren, who came from Carlisle. You'll hear from Dave and I and John, who came from other large accounting firms. We would always say to ourselves, and what really collectively brings us together is, how can we do this differently? How can we create a platform that serves our clients' needs in a different way, allowing for the driving of value out of that platform? And that's what you'll see and you'll hear today. And so how did year one go, right? We introduced it last year, and we spent the last year working with our clients. And I can say this now in hindsight, it truly couldn't have gone better. In fact, it exceeded my and our clients' expectations of what we brought to the table. And the key to that was, when we talk with our clients, or let's say we're talking with a potential client, the challenge that always comes in is the transition, right? The transition to from your current process, your transition from your current provider, whatever that may be. And we look at it a different way. We look at challenging or tackling that problem as more of a transformation. And PartnerSight is the heart of that. And we've, for example, and we put an article out that you can find. So I'll mention one of our clients is Cypress Creek. I'd say probably a year and a half ago, I brought PartnerSight to them, and I shared with them, this is what we're doing, and this is why it's different and transformational, and you can truly have data at your fingertips in real time. And they were very excited about that, and we were able to work with them over the last year. And what they found was that was more valuable than they could have even imagined, not just for, as I mentioned earlier, at the fund level, but truly for the owners and for the investors, and being able to have that data not just retrospectively but prospectively, and the value of that when their investor calls and has a question, when a fund owner is interested in understanding, or the fund is interested in understanding, what would the implications of a sale be, of a divestiture, or the implications of a new purchase, and being able to take that all the way down to the very deep detail of the allocations to make those decisions. And the team will give you more detail on that. So year one was fantastic, and it solidified our belief in what we were doing and what we're bringing to the market, and how transformational this platform can truly be for our clients. And so year two only brings more excitement about what the team will talk to you about today. But we've taken the feedback from our clients and from our process with our over the first year, and enhance the platform even more. And we'll talk again about that today. And from a transformational standpoint, really focused on the connectivity and the interconnectivity, and bringing that full maximization of value of that data flow from the fund all the way through to the owners. So if we go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about that. You'll hear a common theme from our it starts internally, but when we share it with the world from a marketing perspective, it's sites, right? SIGHT. You'll hear about today about PartnerSight principally, but we have other platforms that we've brought to market over the last year: FamilySight, CorporateSight. And it's really that insight that we bring to your data and to your organization that is fundamentally differentiating from a technology standpoint. And how we're doing that is with the interconnectivity of PartnerSight and FamilySight. They're truly platforms on their own, but they are connected at the hip from the standpoint of the data from the fund flows seamlessly to the family office and to the individual side. So if you think about those allocations, and John will talk about this today, $1 of income flowing up through multiple levels, all the way to the top tier. Well, that's not where with that K1, that's not where the story ends. The story ultimately ends on your 1040 or your 1041, and so that's the story that our technology tells, is being able to not just flow that data and have it, but have it at your fingertips for both retrospective, but even more importantly, prospective usage when it comes to being able to understand and drive value out of that data with your platforms and with this platform for you ultimately at the end of the day. Next slide, Dave. Last thing before I wrap up here and hand it over to the experts is, this is truly just the beginning. And you heard me mention our sites that we've brought to market over the last year. And this team that you'll hear from today is part of an overall platform of professionals that we call our Center for Advanced Tax Technology. And our center is a true working startup within RSM that I lead. And it's really important for me to share that with you, because we approach technology and we approach the relationship with our clients in a much different way. And you'll hear about that today. We approach it like a startup from the standpoint of, as a startup, from the standpoint of, we want to solve problems, right? We want to use technology to be effective and to drive value for you on a daily basis. And so we do approach things a different way, in a transformative way. And that's, we get really excited, as you can probably tell, about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And this is, as the slide mentions, this is just the beginning of our technology journey and where we're taking this for the industry and for our clients. And so I'm really excited to hand it over to the team so they can take you through that journey of not only where we've been, but more importantly, where we're going, and how, most importantly, you can leverage it in your day-to-day and get the most out of your get the most value out of your data and the transformative properties of the platform that they're going to share with you. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to the team, to Dave, Lauren, and John, to take you through everything, and I'll be here for questions and moral support because they're the true experts. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Brad. My name is Dave Schwartz. I'm a senior director in the Partnership Technology Services Group, and I've spent years doing compliance, and primarily partnership compliance. And then later in my career, I switched over to tax technology, because when I was doing the compliance, I kept saying there must be a better way. And over the last 5 years, we've been seeing these better ways work its way into our process. Here with me, I have Lauren Demas and John Ein. Why don't you guys introduce yourself? And what we're going to do is we're going to put partnership to the test. Brad talked about the big investment we made, the people we brought in, the execution we've had. So we're going to put it to the test. And the best way to do that is to show how we work with PartnerSight versus kind of the old way of doing things. And some of the firms out there are still doing it the old way. But what we moved on, realizing that Excel is not the future to do this. So with that, Lauren, why don't you give us a quick introduction, and then we'll move to John and we'll get started.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning. It's nice to be with you today. My name is Lauren Demas. I'm a principal here at RSM working on PartnerSight, and you're going to see a little bit about PartnerSight in the next few minutes. Just a little bit about my background. I started my career in public, but I spent the majority of my career, as Brad alluded, on the client side, working at one of the largest investment managers in the world and trying to get through compliance, trying to get through analytics, and just trying to, gain efficiencies in how data works and how I can move it throughout the organization. So I really developed a passion for technology and the efficiencies that come with technology while I was a client. And then I, moved back into the public accounting realm and joined RSM, was so excited about what's going on with PartnerSight, and excited to be with you today.
Thank you, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. John Nine here, Senior Manager. Came over from Big Four about a year ago. I was there for about 10 years, servicing PE and hedge fund clients from a tax compliance standpoint. Throughout kind of the tax compliance side of my career, really similar to Dave, realized there's got to be a better way to do this. A lot of Excel, always liked solving problems. So towards the end of my time there, really transitioned to more of a technology role, helping implement technology, and more importantly, helping clients get the most out of their tax data. Always found kind of a gap between the books and records side of your data internally and then the tax data. There was always that gap of not being able to gain insights into what's happening for tax. So when I heard about PartnerSight, I knew it was a great opportunity to come over, and looking forward to show you guys.
All right, thank you, John. So what we're going to do is we're going to put PartnerSight to the test and talk about some practical applications. And Lauren, with your industry background and living and breathing that change from Excel to software, we want you to address the practical application, the old way of doing things using Excel, since you have so much experience doing that. And then, John, we're going to have you address the practical application from the PartnerSight side, because you're the PartnerSight guru. We'll see how you handle this practical application. So with that, let's get started with our first practical application. An investor calls you and needs a quick answer to a question regarding their K-1. This happens. And let's just say the question, John and Lauren, is, how much is my gain? How much of this gain that I see in my K-1? How much of it is carried interest? And maybe, in fact, show me all my carried interest in the structure that I own. I want to see, all the detail to that. So, Lauren, why don't you address that? How you would approach that, using Excel in the old way?
Okay, great. So the good news is I have all of the data I need. It's in different Excel workbooks. So one of the first things I would do if an investor called with this question was I would look up within our internal systems where this investor came into our organization. So I could have a full list of the entities I needed to go and look in the workbooks for. I would get that list. I would probably double check it with some sort of carried interest schedule from a book standpoint that we had, so I could just make sure I knew where they were getting their carry from. And then I would start to open the Excel workbooks that are on these lists and look at their PDF K1s and, sort of start the reconciliation process of working my way down the structure to get to the point where, the carried interest is coming in, and then trying to figure out what deal is generating that, and then working my way down the structure just to sort of confirm that, while keeping all of the results that I'm finding in an offline sort of scratch pad, if you will, so that I can reconcile it to the K1 to ensure that my total amount that I've been, sort of pulling from these different workbooks ties to the LP's amount, on their K1, right? And that I could give the full breakout of the carry and then the full breakout of the non-carry to prove it two different ways. I think one of the things that we all know and realize is at the end of the day, the K1 is what the investor sees. They don't see all of the work that goes into it. So I wouldn't want to misrepresent an amount in any way by doing this research. So I'd spend quite a bit of time to make sure that they had the best experience possible and the most direct answer from us, even though on the back end, it's sort of an indirect process to go through all of these workbooks and sort of collate the data manually. So that's what I would do, and that's where I would start from for that process.
Yeah, so Lauren, you had to open up a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and you even created your own analysis. And I bet it was a very nice looking analysis, because I have seen your work in Excel. It's pretty good. Something to be very proud of. And then sometimes when you get down to that low level, you may not even have the detail you need, so you have to do even further research. So you'd get there, but it would just take a lot of time. All right, John.
That's right.
How would you use PartnerSight to do this analysis?
Sure. Let me pull up PartnerSight. But I think a theme you're going to see as we kind of walk through PartnerSight here is, can you see me? Great. Is that what Lauren just mentioned? The data's there, right? The process of doing the work is all there, but it's not usable. You have to work for your tax data. PartnerSight kind of allows your tax data to be in a central location for your entire enterprise, and allows the tax data to kind of work for you. A small change for how the tax is done using PartnerSight versus Excel allows for big kind of dividends at the end of the process when you need those insights, when you have those questions, when you have those fire drills. There's a lot less of them. So in this case, PartnerSight, what it really allows us to do, it's our national tax tiering, allocating, and K1 generating software. It allows us to set up the whole structure. And Brad alluded to this earlier, where we define relationships between investments, allocating or legal entities in the middle, and then the investors. Once those relationships are defined, we do enter a dollar of income at the investment level, and then we tell the system how to allocate that income up the chain to the investor. Once that's done, where the income started from, any other annotations, any other information related to that dollar of income when it was entered, sticks with the dollar of income as it weaves its way through the structure. So in the question that Dave had of the investor, we could easily come in and look in the org chart and find an investor. A live org chart is a byproduct of using PartnerSight. This is something that occurs right away. So if it's a founder, or if it's investor 2 that comes in and asks the question, you can easily locate where that investor sits. You can easily look below to see where the investments lie as well. It's also dynamic. You could select on the tile and see exactly what's happening. But in this case, Dave brought up carries. So let's go to the investor allocations. This is the allocations that in the past was buried in multiple Excel spreadsheets. Now it lives in one place for your entire enterprise here. So in this case, we have all the entities in our data set. And as I drill down into one of them, you start to see information. And this information is that standard view of allocating entity to investor. But the question we had was, where's carry coming from? So I could actually pull investor in front when that investor asked the question, and then drill down into that detail and say, okay, since we're setting up everything in the structure, as you can see here, we're breaking out GP between capital and carry. So now we're able to bifurcate, okay, as this income flows up the chain to the ultimate person asking the question, we're able to surface the information of, okay, where is the income coming from? In this case, my carry is coming from investment A deal 1, to be more specific, and then my capital or my cash values for my general partner are all coming from standard cash kind of in throughout the structure. So it's really flexible with how you see things, and just by easily pivoting around the data, you could look at it from one view, the legal entity view, or look at it from the investor view for the question you received.
So John, you haven't even touched Excel. You just came right into PartnerSight, and to create analysis, you're just dropping and dragging data points.
Yeah, because the data, the small change for how we do it allows for that quick flexibility in the back end. It allows your data to be nimble, where in the past, it's really locked in these black boxes of Excel. And a lot of times when we do these Excel reports or these Excel reporting, you don't think about what it's going to mean at the end of the process, right? You don't really have that insight at that level. You're just trying to go through. What PartnerSight allows us to do here at RSM is really care for the data, understand what it's going to mean to the ultimate owner, and really start the process right from the get-go.
I know what Lauren's thinking right now. Can you export what we're seeing on this screen to Excel? Because I still love Excel.
Most certainly. It comes out in a formatted fashion. The data is yours too. So we could data dump all the data to you, very granular, how it's being allocated, or export into a formatted Excel report as well.
And if I don't want Excel, if I don't want rows and columns, I want something better, what do you have?
Power BI built directly in. And this is great. It's built directly into PartnerSight, where other tools, sometimes there's some back end behind the curtain magic happening to the data. We built it directly into the system because it's part of Microsoft 365, so everyone has access. So when that investor calls, we could pull up the BI report and say, okay, which investor asked the question? Let me select that investor. And then filter in and out, maybe founder 1 or founder 2 in this case. And then you're able to see some data points. In this case, founder 1's in 1. So let's actually go back to founder 2. And then unselect this. So ultimately, you have all your data in one place. See where the income is coming from, characteristics related to that income, GAAP versus tax, book versus tax, everything in one single place.
Yeah, this is what I like to see, John, because when a question comes my way, I want the answer to pop out at me. I don't want to be sifting through rows and columns trying to find the answer.
Yep. All in one place.
All right.
2 items.
Well, this that's the first practical application. Let's try another one. And before we do that, we're going to go to a poll question. How often do your investors call with K1 questions? Never? Once a quarter? Once a month? D, they never stop calling? Or E, don't know, not applicable? We'll give everyone a few minutes to answer that, and then we'll talk about the results and move on to another practical application.
I see some questions coming through the chat. So we didn't mention that PartnerSight, as a client, you would have full access to PartnerSight from read-only standpoint. So the data, the moving of the data you just saw there, the BI, that you would have full access to that kind of however you would like. So you could come in and have that transparency into who's doing what, have that transparency into reports. And again, I think the big thing there is, because we are using PartnerSight, that small change of, hey, how are we getting the data in, working with the client as we on board to say, okay, you want to see this at the top. Let's tweak this down here when we start the work to allow for you to see it at the top, really is where those reports start to gain a lot of value.
So when that question comes in, John, to our clients, they don't have to call us to get the answer. They can go right in and get the answer.
Yeah, it's that one-stop shop, right? It's that place where you could come in right away and answer the question and not have to leave the desk and call RSM and wait a day, or call someone else and wait. We're going to give you the answer directly in PartnerSight. You're going to be able to come right in and get it.
All right. Well, thank you, John. So I think we got most of our answers here submitted. Let's go to the results. And it's a mixed bag here. I want to work at the place where they never have questions. That would be get a lot of work done there. And D, they never stop calling. So it's all over the board. But the thing is, when that question does come in, you can add a lot of value to your position and your department, being able to answer those questions, very quickly. All right, so let's move on to practical application 2. Let's see what it is here. A general partner wants to know how tax policy changes could affect their income. Okay, so there's a lot going on right now in tax policy. And we'll talk about how PartnerSight plays a role in that. But let's say, John and Lauren, we want to know the effect that carried interest holding period changing from 3 to 5 years. How's that going to affect my general partner?
Okay, so I'll jump in first, Dave. I actually loved these type of questions because it was a different variety than, just the normal tax compliance. It was, you could do some analysis with your data and just see how things would impact your firm. So for me, it would be similar to what we talked about with a little bit of a different twist in the earlier example. So what I would first do is I would look at make sure that all of my final workbooks from a tax compliance standpoint were saved down to a network, and that's what I was pulling to do my analysis. So I would make sure I had the latest version. There's no version control issues. I would make a copy of the latest version. So I had my record, and then I had my sort of sandbox that I could do some analysis in. And I would do that for a number of different spreadsheets, however many it was applicable to. I would make the appropriate changes and make sure that they tiered appropriately. So that would take a little bit of time. And then what I would do is I would have to create a new set to do some analysis. So to compare the old way and the new way, right? The pre-change and the post-change. So what I would do is make sure that everything was formatted the same way, and then start drawing in the information, right? And see what impact it would have on my organization. So at this point, I would be getting to the analysis. Everything I was doing before was sort of setting up to get to the analysis. So that's what I would do from a federal standpoint. Then I would also look at it from a state standpoint and see, depending on what changes happen there, how it would impact us from a state footprint. So I would do the same sort of exercise of the latest version, the copying, going into the appropriate spreadsheets, and then making sure everything tiered and doing the comparison with, pre and post change or implementation, based off of those numbers. What would it have looked like if the rule was X at year end, or what would it look like based on these sort of variables that we're thinking about from an organization with coming up exits and that sort of thing. So I would, be in a lot of different Excel workbooks, and then I would probably have something saved in a different Excel workbook. And I would hope that you wouldn't come back and ask for certain tweaks here and there, because then I might have to go back to the beginning and sort of rinse and repeat what I was doing. But at the end of the day, this stuff is really interesting, and it's curious exercises to walk through of, hey, how would this impact us? And it's just a change in some of the day-to-day with the LP questions and different compliance stuff and getting out estimates. It's a different way to look at the data and what it means to you and your organization.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Again, this is probably a beautiful analysis you put together, and I hope you had multiple monitors to do your work, because there's a lot to look at there. So John, let's talk about what you would do in PartnerSight. This is an interesting change. The holding period from 3 to 5 years is kind of moving the goalposts out. It's a change in character. It could take me a big impact on the GPs, and they might want to know that. And this is just one example. There's a laundry list of changes. So how would you go about this?
Sure. Similar to the theme in the past, right? The past example here, a small change for how it's done pays dividends in the back end, right? So because we're building out this entire data set, we're building out PartnerSight, tiering your income automatically, all those relationships, all that data is now reusable. We're able to easily come in and clone a data set and create a copy of a data set, and then see, okay, what if that holding period changed? Or pinpoint exactly what the tax policy update may apply to, and be able to kind of pinpoint that change. So in this case, we could easily clone the data set, apply a couple scenarios, and then be able to figure out exactly what it would mean. So in this case, if I look through one of these funds and I click through one of the investors and click through here, you're able to see sale of Apple stock, and I'm able to again say, okay, in this case it's 3+ year. If there was the holding period change, you'd be able to find exactly what investment is throwing off those types of income that may be in question. Let's really pinpoint of where we need to look for that and be able to really easily scenario plan. But once we clone the data set, we could easily change it and say, okay, what if now? What does it mean now to that ultimate investor or that GPS in the question? The data is all usable. You're able to repurpose it throughout the year and not just have to go through that burden of Excel, and hope that none of those Excels are so big that it crashes your computer. And then you lose all that work, right? And what's great about PartnerSight here is, to Brad's point earlier about Cypress, we ended up having about 55 million allocations in the system, and the system calculated in 6 seconds. So the scale here of size and reusability and that small change really helps you in the back end a lot. And lastly, going back to BI and that scenario plan, hey, how does that affect that investor? We could easily, because the data is so structured, compare 2 data sets and say, okay, now that income changed, what does it mean to that investor? All those data points are the same. So now you can see what that delta really, how it moves the needle for that potential tax policy change real quickly.
Yeah, that's great, John. You made a change at the bottom of the structure. You reviewed it going up. You didn't create a separate analysis. You're just reviewing, analyzing making sure that the answer is correct once it gets to the top. And as Brad said, when it gets to the top of a partnership structure, it's not done yet. That has an effect on an individual. And, we're going to bring up the name PartnerSight, which is another one of our applications, our cloud-based applications that has connectivity with PartnerSight, so that K1 goes into an analysis for that, founder's 1040. And that's where the actual tax difference is analyzed. Here, we're just going to, make sure that the income and character difference is correct. So great, John. All right, so let's go on to another polling question. We're get a couple more practical applications. We're not done yet. We're just getting started. Polling question number 2, have you discussed tax policy changes with your general partners? A, no, nothing is final yet. Planning to discuss. They've already asked, but it's going to take some time to model. Either way, I'll need help from my tax provider. We'll give everyone a few minutes to answer that.
And we've had
while we're waiting for that, Brad.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Dave. We've had some excellent questions in the chat. I'm responding fast and furious over here. One, and I've been sending them to all of you. I've hit the button that says send to all, so hopefully you can see them. But I'll address them as you're answering that. One of them is, what does this cost, right? Well, I love answering that question. Is nothing, right? And let me explain. For our clients that we're providing the tax compliance services to, this is all included. So if we're if we're providing you those services, there is no additional cost or extra cost for this, right? It's part of, think about it, right? And this is part of what I was mentioning at the beginning of looking at things differently. This is your data, this is your process, and we really want to provide you with the maximum value from that data, both retrospectively as we prepare the returns, but more importantly, to what the team has been sharing with you prospectively. So to the point of this question is, what if you need to figure out, or not what, but when you need to understand what the potential tax policy changes will mean to your organization, being able to go in and replicate data in PartnerSight and having that at your fingertips, that's the value that we all as a team collectively agreed over time that we wanted you to have at your fingertips. So bottom line is, there is no cost to it. It all comes as part of our services.
All right, thank you, Brad. And that explanation served two purposes. It described that we're making an investment in our clients and the way we do business, and it also allowed a lot of other people to sneak in these questions at the last minute to get their CPE. So let's go to the results. All right, again, we have a mixed bag of answers, but a lot of these, you're going to need help from a tax provider. They're going to ask at some point, and everyone should be planning for these questions to come because they're going to have an impact, and they're going to have an impact in the near future, and every time we have a change in Washington, we're going to have this type of work to do. All right, so with that, let's move on to our next practical application. A new partner contributes a group of assets with a basis difference. Well, that brings up 704C. And when partners contribute assets with a basis difference, that requires different allocations to the contributing and non-contributing partners, among other things. So Lauren, how would you get started with this? Using Excel.
Well, I would probably first take a deep breath because it can be a pretty involved calculation. And Excel is great. I mean, Excel is wonderful, but it also has its limits. So if I were doing this in Excel, what I would do is first I would assume that this is a depreciable property. So that would mean I would have to calculate a special allocation depreciation to the contributing and the non-contributing partners. And then at the same time, track the burn off of the gain. So in addition to, the different capital accounts that would need to be tracked. So honestly, I could get the calculation started, but every time, there is a reevaluation event, I would need to create another layer, right? And then calculate the gain loss on the sale of the assets. So to be quite honest, in Excel, I might have to punt on this one and say, I don't know how holistically I can do this and how much it can be sustained in the current Excel environment, and if it could grow with the different events that may or may not happen and the different layerings that may or may not happen. And to be quite frank, if I were to leave the firm, would someone else know how to work this elaborate workbook that I set up, right? So I might need to look elsewhere. I could do it, and it would probably be extremely painful up to a certain point. Then I would definitely need to probably look elsewhere. But at the beginning, I probably would talk to you about looking elsewhere from just a system capability standpoint.
Yeah, because once you start building that Excel, the risk becomes greater, and the risk of an error, and the risk of the knowledge who built that. And we hear that from clients as well, who say, I'm the only one who knows how to do this spreadsheet. What if I leave? What happens? So that is an issue. All right, John. So in PartnerSight, let's go through some of these things that Lauren mentioned. Is it going to do the depreciation allocation to contributing and non-contributing partners? Is it going to automate that calculation?
Yeah, for sure. It'll definitely automate. You'll be able to see that's the specifically allocated item. So if I click through main fund 1 here and expand line 1, it's going to track your 704C and your non-704C and be able to track that as it allocates up. So you want to talk about kind of crashing Excel, right? When these allocations, especially with a lot of LPs and a lot of different properties being contributed, this is where you have that really huge volume of data coming through your Excel workbooks. And that's where you start to run the risk, not only the risk of if that person leaves, the risk of, is Excel going to be able to handle this from a scale perspective? How big can I get before it just doesn't work anymore? Great.
So we're going to put in all the data. It's going to do that calculation. It's going to track the burn off. What about the capital accounts? We know that there's, the tracking of all the different capital accounts and the disparity between those accounts.
Yeah, so the system, how every single dollar of capital movement and asset, right? We're tracking of, hey, is it hitting your 704B book basis? Is it hitting your tax basis? Is it hitting your GAAP basis? And these are all calculated items. So the allocation that you're seeing here is getting rolled up from the income portion of this. So it's easily going to be able to handle the calculation of those items and be able to track those bases as the items, essentially the basis unwinds, the difference unwinds over time.
That's great. And then what about debt allocations? That's a big issue as well.
Yeah. So again, drop and drag functionality within PartnerSight. So debt allocation is in a taxable income. So I'm going to drop that out, and then I'm going to pull in, where is the allocation value? And similar to how income tiers, you're able to see your non-recourse right here, and you're able to see your liability. That's all going to tier and then be allocated up the chain if there is that. But it's going to be able to track that. And if you have different buckets of liabilities that are allocated differently or treated differently, you're able to track those as well, similar to the income items.
Yeah, that's great. So we'll be able to put in all the underlying data. The system's going to calculate all that. We'll review it. It can handle the volume. That's going to be a big help for us, and our clients. And the transparency here is going to be key as well, being able to review this and then the tiering going up from one level to the next. So very, very excited about that. And then just the calculation times, right? Because we're in the cloud, you mentioned, we can calculate 52 million allocations on that one client. Like you said, when you start getting into the different valuation periods, the different assets by partner, and the different allocations, that's going to, bog down a lot of systems. And with us, we're seeing, lightning fast results. So with that, let's go to our next polling question. Do you need a tax provider that can automate 704C allocations? No, my partners do not contribute property. No, I have a closed-end fund. Yes, I have partners that contribute property. Yes, I have an open-end fund. There's probably more than one answer that you could choose here, but choose one, and we'll wait for those results. And Brad, what are we seeing on the Q&A aspect?
Fantastic questions. I'll try rapid fire. Does PartnerSight have SALT capabilities? Absolutely. And incredibly comprehensive, the best I've ever seen in the industry. 704C capabilities. Can we model different methods, i.e., traditional, remedial, curative? Absolutely. PartnerSight was built for that. I'm going to keep going here. Do partners, is PartnerSight accessible by clients? Absolutely. We build it for that purpose, and it will be available for you to access and to run reports, model data, and we work with you on that to do that. So those are a couple rapid fire questions there, Dave.
Brad,
yes.
Brad, one more. There's a question about PartnerSight and independence. I don't know if you wanted to hit on that one as well. If there are any independence concerns with PartnerSight.
No, from the standpoint of, PartnerSight truly is built as a tax compliance platform, and so therefore, if we in a traditional model are providing tax compliance for our clients, it is the same. Now, I will tell you, when we get into modeling and we get into some of the more advanced capabilities of the platform, we'll always have to be considerate of that and work with our independence teams, our audit team, our quality assurance, et cetera, across the board to make sure that we don't have any issues there. But from a traditional leveraging the platform to do everything that we're showing you today, there is no independence issues there from the standpoint of its tax compliance that we're doing.
All right, Brad. So most
one more that Lauren always asks: do you use it for the RSM partnership? Absolutely, we do. That's always from day one. And Lauren said this to me because she always used to ask this question in her capacity at a very, very large investment fund. But you're sharing this with me. Do you use it? And so I said, well, Lauren, we will make sure that we can answer that in the affirmative when that's asked. Yes, we do. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and that ties back into the SALT component, and we're going to kind of ease into that. And then there's another session that's going to take a deep dive into the state and local taxes. So let's see the results here. Yes and no, kind of split. So some people have it, some people don't. We also know that there are some proposed tax changes in the 704C area, and they're not going to be friendly. It's going to draw more people into doing these types of calculations. So, you want a tax provider that can be prepared to do this with the speed you need them to do it, especially when you have to do scenarios. So with that, let's move on to our fourth practical application. And this is going to tie into and move us towards state and local taxes and holding back a state tax withholding from a distribution of a realization of event. So you have an event that happens, you're going to have to pay withholding taxes. You don't want to, give the distribution all to the partner. Some of that distribution is going to have to be held back to pay these state taxes. How are you going to do that? That's a big one. So Lauren, let's start with you.
Okay, great. So, geez, there's sort of a lot to cover in
Lauren,
this one.
You sound tired. You sound tired.
I actually do love states. I mean, they are so interesting, and there's so much, that changes every year, and there's so many. But one of the things, because of that I would do is I would look at, okay, what is our state income, or where is this income generating from a nexus perspective? And I would look at those states, and I would just run through, their literature to make sure the rates didn't change, and if they did, that I incorporated that, or that any of how they allocate or apportioned their rules didn't change. If they did, I would incorporate that. And so then I would create a schedule for each of these states I would go run a report of all of my partners and the partner type for a tax perspective, and I would put that into my spreadsheet as well. I would calculate, the entity level income coming up and sort of going up the chain. The other thing I would do is I would take a look at my previous year tax returns to see if I had any overpayments that were applied to current year, so that I didn't double dip, if you will, in the withholding. And that I could run through any of that withholding before, withholding from a distribution. So I would sort of take all of that data together, which is housed in either enterprise-wide systems within an organization, prior tax returns, state websites or literature that they have out there. I would take all of that information together, sort of collate it, and start doing my calculations on a entity basis and then by partner. And then I would pass that up the tier as applicable. And then, take that result and calculate it next to my distribution to make sure that I was withholding that from a distribution standpoint and, take it from there. But the setup is a lot of work. And the first part of checking all the rules and from a withholding or an allocation and apportionment standpoint and that sort of thing to make sure that they didn't change. That would be, number one. And then getting the partners, the partner type, rolling that forward, including that, looking at prior data, rolling that, and then sending it up. So it's an interesting exercise. It's a laborious exercise in Excel that just sort of is collating all this data that's already existing in Excel, just putting it in a new Excel for a purpose that I would want. But it's actually pretty interesting, but it would take me quite a bit of time to get through this, and I think we all know distributions sort of hot to trot to get out the door to the LPs. So this would be probably an intense amount of time that I would have to spend.
Yeah, so not only are you doing this for, you're doing this for one entity, right? And then you'll have either a tab or a separate file for each state. And then you got, let's say, 10 states plus your summary analysis. That all has to tier up. So now you're tiering up 10 spreadsheets to another, and then another 10 or 12, and it can go forever. So that is a ton of work. That's why you sound tired, Lauren. You've been doing all this work in Excel, but all very good work. Now let's go to John. John, how easy is this if you use PartnerSight?
I'll be going a little earlier than Lauren will tonight because it'll be pretty quick. Same thing as kind of scenario A, right? So or that planning or that cloning, able to create a copy of the data set and apply those changes. You're able to see which investment is throwing off the SALT income from what state, and then it tiers. All those calculations, withholding, composite elections, are all handled within PartnerSight. And then similar to what we showed in the past, you're able to surface information in regards to states. All those rules are held at the kind of national level. So not one person is going to be having on your engagement team is going to have to go through every state that we have income with and make sure that the rules are right. It's all handled in a single place. And then we're able to gain visualizations and insights of the data, make decisions, and to the point of withholding, determine, hey, is this potential investor going to be creating a lot of withholding issues in a state that maybe we don't file in? So you're able to really see everything from a state perspective a lot more in the macro lens versus the micro lens of just kind of getting through that Excel workbook and moving on. You get to see it from the bottom all the way up the top as the income tiers.
So John, not only you're not even creating schedules here, but you're thinking and making decisions based on the different states and their different rules and the different de minimis levels. Yep. And the other thing I see here is, when I think of a state spreadsheet, I think of 20, 30 tabs in there, and being able to go to different tabs and different files to find any information takes a long time. This is all filterable. It looks like this is all here.
Yeah, you could filter by potential tax liability, track your payments. I don't want to take too much of the thunder from the SALT presentation coming next, but it's a full-fledged tool here that handles everything you can need from a state perspective and handles it in a structured format. You can compare year over year because it's structured year over year. It's not a new Excel workbook, a change of how it looks. It's in a structured data set format. Again, that small change in how we do it allows for a lot more insight into your data as your enterprise grows or as the data grows and your investment footprint grows.
So you make a change over in federal, and you call up this report, and that federal change is going right through here, right?
Exactly. And it handles apportionment, your tiering rules for apportionment as well, in regards to how the kind of type of apportionment formula each state has. And it's all transparent, all there for you to see.
So if you go to the map, I saw a map there, and you hover over one of the states. What's it telling me there?
This gives you your apportionment factors in the weighting. And then in that sense, same for the summary viz when it talks about SSI. How much is getting allocated? How much is apportioned SSI to that state? All these factors are entered at the investment level and then tiered up the chain. So if that K1 comes in, external K1 comes in with an external apportionment, that could be tagged in the system. If it's simply allocated, that could be tagged in the system and tiered up the chain, and appropriate rules applied all the way up. And calculations for withholding. Do you have non-resident withholding you need to worry about? Things like that are all handled directly in the system.
Wow. Okay. All right. With that, there's a whole technology session on state. So let's cut it off there. Let's go to our polling question, and we're going to wrap it up. How do you determine if it is necessary to pay state withholding? A, I don't pay withholding. I will wait till the notice comes in. B, I research all the de minimis thresholds. C, I pay a flat rate for all partner types just to reduce my time. And D, I use PartnerSight to analyze those decisions. And E, don't know, not applicable. So we'll take a minute there to collect all those results. We're coming near the end of the hour. We hit it perfectly. Anything in Q&A, Brad, that we're seeing?
Yeah, we just had some questions about, why is the cloud differentiating, for example. And I also had questions about being able to connect this platform directly into ERP systems. That's one of the reasons it's differentiating. When you have a cloud-based system like this, you can allow for, you'll hear a term, APIs, right? We can connect into and make available our application protocol interfaces or APIs to our clients, so we can connect that information and pull that data in real time. So from a planning standpoint, or just from an ease of connectivity, that's why the cloud is so fantastic from that standpoint. Of course, security, right? You're not going to find a more secure place for your data than that which is built for it. From a this sits on Microsoft Azure's cloud, which it's just incredible from that standpoint. There's so many reasons for that, but it really makes integrating and connecting with our clients and sharing data real time so much easier and more dynamic.
All right, we're going to the results. And a lot of people are researching the de minimis thresholds. They're being careful in deciding when to pay into a state. So there's a lot more on state. We have a whole session on that coming up later, a technology session. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone. This was a fun session. I hope you have further questions. You can reach out to any one of us, and we love talking about this stuff.
Absolutely. So please answer yes to that and reach out to us. And please, I had some state questions about the module. Is it ready to go now? It is absolutely ready to go now. We're using it with clients, and so therefore, please go over to our session with Phil and the team, and in which you can you can connect with them and go into a deeper dive on the state side.
All right, thank you.
Over to Allison to wrap us up. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Bethany. Thanks, team.
Thank you, guys.